Welcome to I See You, a podcast where we know that human connection restores mental health and resilience. I'm your host, Julie De Jesus, and I See You. Let's be friends. Welcome everyone to the I See You podcast. This is a podcast where we talk all about how human connection is truly what restores mental health and resilience that we so badly need in the world today, especially in the midst of AI and so much going digital. Even in restaurants now, we aren't seeing a lot of people. We're not seeing the normal cashiers and things that we're used to. We're just having a lot less in-person human connection. And because of that, these conversations I think are so valuable. Today, I am just ecstatic to have my friend on the podcast who does some really impactful work in his life that's pretty different. And I think really relates to all of us in our own relationships and the influence we have wherever that may be. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to you my good friend, Dave Durocher. In our world today, do you ever feel like real, authentic human connection is becoming less of a certainty and more of an anomaly? Well, good news. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm Julie De Jesus. I'm a keynote speaker and author and a corporate trainer. I speak all over the country about how to utilize human connection to improve mental health, resilience, and even work performance. If you know a group looking for a speaker, you can contact me at julie-dejesus.com.
Hi, Julie.
Is your legal name David?
My legal name is David, and that's what my mom calls me.
I just knew. So Dave Durocher. Dave is the executive director of the Other Side Academy, which I had never heard of until we spoke on the same stage at Utah Business Forward last November. Yeah. You were right before me, and so I came in a few minutes before and just caught the end of your presentation, and I was astonished and also not sure what I even thought about the material you were giving. I was like, that's really spinning it on its angle as I talk about human connection. And I needed to know more, and I wanted to know you. And since then you've had me come to tour the facility and it's been a really incredible experience. I just want your take on all of this as someone who has served time in prison, who's now living his life to help others rehabilitate after spending time in prison. Will you give us a little background of your life?
Sure. How much time do I have, Julie? So without getting really deep into the weeds, I mean, today I'm the executive director with the Other Side Academy, but I haven't always been. I was a hardcore drug addict for 27 years, and people hear drug addict and they paint a picture that, this is what he must have been doing. I wasn't the guy that smoked a joint on a Friday and had a beer on Sunday and went to work on Monday. I was out of the workforce for decades. So, as it progressed when I was younger, drinking alcohol, I learned it at home. Dad didn't set me down and open up a can of beer and go, "Here, Dave, here's how you do it." But I learned at home, watching my dad and friends come over, and I would go grab a beer out of the refrigerator, pop the top, take the first drink, and at the end of that party, I'd collect the cans, take the last drink, crush the cans, put them in the plastic bag, we'd recycle them. Not that any of that's important, but that's how I learned at home, right? And then, then I was coming home from school and I was getting into my dad's alcohol decanter and I was stealing his alcohol and I was replacing it with water because he would never find out, right? And it didn't take long for him to come home from work, have a drink, and realize that he wasn't getting the desired effect he was looking for, and he quickly realized I was. As you could imagine, that conversation didn't go well, but that's when it all began, right? And I was already Dennis the Menace. I was the kid at Christmas time that would wait for the mailman to leave the street at Christmas time, and I'd go back to those mailboxes and I'd steal the mail because I knew cash would be in those cards. Wow. I was really a criminal before I was ever even a drug addict.
When did you drink or drugs first?
Drink with my first. Well, I don't remember how old I was when I took a first sip of beer. I was just 7 or 8 years old when I took a first sip of beer.
Okay.
But that's not when it started. But I took the sip nonetheless. But about 11 years old is when I started to drink more regularly. When I say regularly, whenever I could sneak to do it. And as the next couple of years progressed, I was stealing alcohol from my dad, like I was saying. And then
when did stealing start that you first remember?
Oh God, I was stealing at a very young age. Like I said, I was a criminal before I was ever a drug addict.
Why do you think that is?
I wish I knew. I think it was just I don't know if it was just part of my DNA, right? Because no one taught me how to do that. And I'll never forget, just as a kid, I was 7 or 8 years old. I would steal from my mom and dad. I'd steal change. I would still go get candy, and I wanted to buy my friends, and I was doing all that kind of stuff. And I remember stealing it out of my mom's purse And she found out. And she found me. She says, David, did you steal that money out of my purse? I go, no, Mom. She goes, you didn't. I go, no. She goes, empty your pockets. So I did. And I was so proud my pockets were empty. She said, take your shoes off. And I don't know how the money got in there. But there it was, right? She was smart enough to know. I was such a sneaky little kid.
Wow.
And I was a liar. And I was literally in prison before I ever went to prison. And what I mean by that is I'd get put on restriction in my room for sometimes weeks, if not months on end. My friends would come over. Nope, he's on restriction. Nope, he's on restriction. My parents had no idea how to deal with me. So as we fast forward.
Did you go to school during that time?
I was going to school, of
But then
course.
you would go to your room.
Yeah, I was just in trouble a lot. I was just that kind of kid. So, it was probably predestined for the life that I had.
Yes, and nothing the same, but like I definitely stole change from my parents as a kid.
Uh-huh.
I remember taking some change out of my sister's drawer when I think I was a preteen because I needed some money and lying to her about it. Yeah. Now, I don't. Sorry, Jen. Sorry. Now that she knows, now this is. But like,
so it was you.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I did not then become a drug addict and a heavy drinker, and so some of this is maybe some normal kid behavior, or I don't know. Yeah. Maybe later we'll talk about that's not normal kid behavior. But obviously there was a different addiction, if you will, to it.
I think there was some normal kid behavior, but I also think I took it to the extreme.
Yeah.
Because as the next few years were on, that stealing became a lot worse, and I'll share that with you as I tell my story. Do we want to do that? Want me to continue?
We do.
At 12 years old, I smoked my first joint. So whatever age I was as a seventh grader, that's when I first smoked my first joint. So I was 12 years old, and now I'm drinking and I'm smoking pot, and things are continually getting worse. Mom and Dad are finding out, and Dad was really the disciplinarian in my house, right? And he would set me down sometimes and have father-son conversations, but that wasn't working. Nothing was working. There were times that I was drinking or stealing from him, and things got really bad. When I say bad, I mean I would get bent over the couch, the belt, right, bare ass, if you will. There were times where I would get slapped across the face. There were times when it was a closed fist. And it's strange. That stuff heals. But the verbal stuff didn't. Now, I didn't realize it then in the moment because this is my home, this is my upbringing, this is my house, it's the norm. I have nothing to compare it to. But the verbal abuse, as the years wore on, I started to believe. And it was things like, you're never going to amount to, and it came with some colorful language that I can't repeat, right? And I won't, but you can imagine what that looked like. And that stuff started to sink in. I started to believe it. And as the years wore on, right, I continued to drink, I continued to smoke pot, and then my freshman year in high school, I did my first line of cocaine, and I thought I found God. So it isn't the way Coke made me feel, it's the way it no longer made me feel. And it got really bad. Coke was expensive in the 80s, right? It wasn't cheap. So how am I supporting my habit? I am stealing everything you could possibly imagine. I got into my dad's wallet, right? Got his combination to the safe out of there. I got into his safe in his room when he wasn't home, when I stole thousands of dollars before he realized what had happened. My very first arrest, I was on a bike, my BMX bike. I took a check out of his checkbook, forged it for $100. I'm at the drive-through bank on my bike when the cops rolled up, trying to cash a check. So that's just a couple things, but it was getting bad. And I was even when I was younger, right? I had a newspaper route at 11, 12, or 13 on my bike, and when I would go collect, right, if the people weren't home, I'd check the door to see if it was open, and if it was, I'd go in, not knowing if anybody was home. And if they weren't, I'm looking for jewelry, I'm looking for cash. Things were bad, and they were progressively getting worse.
And very young age started.
At a very young age, right? Yeah. Now, of course, my friends, my friend circle started to change, and this is really important. I call it my circle of influence. I didn't call it that then. But as my dad continued with the verbal, I don't know, how else would you deal with me? I'm not even sure he did anything wrong, right? There's no playbook, Dave Durocher playbook for when he acts like this, page 7 when he does this.
Yeah, and it's always easy. I mean, we're talking about parenting, and we're talking about all these things so much more now than they were then, right? Like, that's not to excuse it that it's, I don't think that's a healthy way to talk to your kids. I'm not going to talk to them, but like, I also have the lens now of what I understand now, what's been modeled for me, what hasn't been modeled for me, that hopefully I hope people did the best they could with the cards they had.
Yeah, absolutely. Where was I at? So high school started.
Circle of influence.
Yeah, circle of influence.
Verbal abuse is bad.
It started to change. The good kids I was hanging out with earlier in my adolescence has started to change. Now I'm gravitating more towards the stoners. You know, they're wearing the Van Halen shirt. They're wearing the Black Sabbath shirts, the Iron Maiden.
So you're saying is if you like Van Halen, you will go to jail and become a drug addict?
No,
right?
that was the group I started hanging out with. And then the posters in my room, Eddie from Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, all these bands, right? My mom and dad are just like, what is going on with him? You know what I mean? But I loved that music. And I had the Hitachi stereo. If you remember back in the 80s, the Hitachi stereo was just the single deck, and it had the blue light bar, and it was sitting on little pegs, and I'd have a mirror that I would slide underneath it. So now I'm in my room, I'm coming home from school, I'm supposed to be doing my homework, I pull the mirror out, chopping my Coke, slide it back underneath. Parents would come in, open the door to check on me, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I had just done a line, right? It was that bad. I was the kind of kid that would go to school, high school, and I'd bring a little vial of cocaine with me, little brown glass bottle with a black top, and I would sit in class, and I would sit in the back of the class. And when the teacher was up at the board, regardless of what classroom it was in, whether it was history, math, or science, I'd take that vial, I'd open it up, and I'd pour the Coke in between the pages of whatever book I had on my desk. I'd pull the big pen apart, and I'd use the cartridge of that pen, and I'd lean over, and I'd snort Coke in class. That's how bad it was getting.
I don't know if I should be like sad or impressed. That is creative.
Julie, you have no idea. I was just
Any length.
I was spiraling out of control. Now, if you're doing drugs and you're smoking pot and you're doing Coke and you're drinking, you're hanging out with the other kids that are doing it. So I became sexually active. I was sexually active as an 8th grader in junior high school.
So what is that? That's like 13, 14,
yeah,
15.
13. That was the first time.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't like saying this, but I was a good-looking kid. Long blonde hair.
We get it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So getting girls even
You're
at that
still
age,
a good-looking kid.
Well, thank you.
Without the hair. Yeah.
But I was a good-looking kid. I had long blonde hair. I've got pictures. You'd go, that's you? You know what I mean? So getting girls was really easy, and that was a big problem. You know what I mean? So now I'm in high school. I'm partying. I'm having sex. I'm getting girls pregnant. We're having abortions in high school. Now, having abortions in high school means the parents have to find out, my goodness, those conversations didn't go well. And then I got my first wife pregnant when I was a junior, and I had my first boy while I was a senior. Do I sound like someone who's ready to have kids? My life's a mess, right? So
you do not. You do not.
I do not. Christopher, my oldest boy, is 40 years old now, right? I had him in 1985, but got her pregnant as a junior when she had him as a senior. And I'm nowhere near ready to have kids. I can't take care of myself, let alone kids.
For sure.
So graduate from high school, barely.
But she keeps the baby.
Yeah, we were still together. We're dating, but I'm sleeping with other women. So
okay.
I was never a good boyfriend. I was never a good husband. I wasn't any of those things because I wasn't a good person.
Right.
You can't be a good dad. You can't be a good boyfriend. You can't be a good son if you're not a good human being. You know what I mean? And I had some really bad things I was doing. That doesn't mean I didn't have the potential to be good, but I wasn't honing those skills. I was honing the others.
Well, and a question I have is, do you feel like because you were lying in all these other ways, it made it much easier also to be unfaithful in a relationship? It's like, oh man, I've been lying about this since about all these things, all these ways, and that hasn't been enough to stop me. That why all of a sudden would you be honest and true in this way?
You mentioned the word faithful. I didn't know the importance of being faithful. I'm a teenager with the mindset of a 6-year-old, the way I'm living my life. So faithful doesn't even have
just dopamine hit.
It doesn't have a value to me. What does faithful even mean?
Yeah.
So
you're not even feeling that guilty. Like you're not even that sad.
No, I'm just a kid I'm just having fun. Back then when my parents were telling me I was a drug
sex.
addict. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm just partying.
Yeah.
You guys don't understand. I'm just partying. I don't have a problem. You do. In my mind, a drug addict was somebody in the gutter with a needle in his arm. That was a drug addict to me. I was just partying. I'm drinking. I'm having Coke. I'm having sex. I'm just having fun. Man, was I wrong. And as the older I got, the smarter my parents became, right? I was just so wrong. So I graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. And when I graduated from high school, I went from Coke to meth. And that's really when the wheels fell off. And, for my whole high school years, as I'm stealing to support my habit, right? When I didn't plan one day to wake up in the morning and get introduced to meth. That was just the circle I was running in, and someone introduced me to meth, and man, that lit my brain on fire. Literally. Cheaper. The high was much longer. So many things were different than cocaine, and I fell in love with methamphetamine. So, now I'm doing meth, and I would go buy a 16th, and this might not mean a lot to people listening because they might not understand what that is, but it's just a little, and I'd sell quarter grams out of it. So I buy a 16, sell a quarter gram for $20, another one, boom, now I'm supporting my habit. So I stopped
to start
stealing.
dealing.
Yes. But I didn't wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to be a drug dealer. I never did that.
Right.
But as the months and years wore on, that's what I did. And I literally, I didn't even know what entrepreneur meant, right? Let alone how to spell it. Not that drug dealing is entrepreneurial, but it is to some degree, right?
Yep.
So one thing leads to another. Now I'm buying more, selling more, buying more, selling more, buying more, selling more. And pretty soon I'm buying much larger amounts. And when you're buying large amounts of drugs and you're selling drugs, what else are you carrying with you?
A gun?
Guns. I was infatuated. Now I've got guns. I'm making a name for myself, right? I'm realizing that I can support myself like this.
This is in California?
This is in California.
Okay.
So I do this for a couple of years before my first arrest. Not my first arrest, but my first arrest for sales, transportation, and loaded firearms. And my first prison term was 2 years. So I got busted with about a half a pound of meth and 2 loaded firearms. And I won't get into how it went down, but the firearms had the type of bullets inside them that the cops took personally, and they beat the living, what's the word I can use? We'll just say crap out of me. And I had it coming.
I'm not censoring you.
Right.
Yes.
And I went to prison. My first term was 2 years. I went to prison, did my time, got out, stayed out for 59 days. My next prison term was 5 years. Got out, stayed out for 60 days. So it was 59 and 60. So I'm getting better at staying out. My next prison term was 6 years. I stayed out for 4 months. And then my next prison term was a 10-year term. And I stayed out for 4 months. Julie, it's safe to say the day I got out of prison, I was on my way back in. And you can see all the tattoos, right? I have no shopping, none at all. All of my tattoos are all prison tattoos. And I'm covered really from the neck down, from the waist up, everything's covered. And I was making a name for myself.
No leg tattoos?
No leg tattoos.
It's cool. Yeah. Insider. No leg tattoos.
Right. So I'm making a name for myself in the state of California in prison, right? And the way you do that is, how do you make a name for yourself? By doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And pretty soon I'm running the prison yards, right? So I'm what they refer to as the shot caller.
Which prison is this?
I'm in Susanville, Jamestown, Wasco, Soledad, CRC, Chino. I ran the whole gamut, right? Prison to prison to prison to prison, term after term after term after term. And in order to get some of the political tattoos, some of which I've had removed, I had to put a lot of work in. And that just means you're going to be on the front line for riots, you're going to do the cell fights, you're going to stab people, you're going to do those things, and that's how you earn that. I started to believe that prison was home for me.
Wow.
This is where I'm going to spend my life. I would get out and come back, and Durocher's back on the yard. I'd be in reception. They'd shoot me a bag of soups and coffee, and they're taking care of me, right? The homeboys. Because
what do you mean
care.
they're shooting you a bag?
So I get to reception. I'd get from the county jail after fighting my case to reception, which was normally Wasco State Prison.
Yes.
Going to stay there for a few months before they go to classification and then determine what mainline prison to send you. So as soon as I'd get to reception, they'd know that I rolled up, and the homeboys would shoot over a goodie bag. Soups, coffee, the things I need, because I just got there and don't have anything, right?
Got it,
When you get to reception, you have nothing but a paper jumpsuit, and you're pretty much naked for the most part.
Yeah.
So anyway, making a name for myself in there, earning the tattoos, and I started to fall in love with the politics inside prison. And this is where I belong. This is home for me. This is where I've got respect. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize that there's a big difference between reputation and character. And how do you build your reputation? By doing the wrong thing. Right? So, man, was I building a reputation.
Yeah.
But I had no character.
Yeah.
I was just soulless. And I was willing to do just about anything on the inside to earn the political tattoos.
Well, and my thought is, like, as much as you say you start, I know you said you started stealing really young, but, like, you weren't born with this reputation. So it's like, how would you even know who you are at this point? It's like the layers are so deep of this mask of I would think, like, utilizing your mask to get what you want, right? Like, I'm going to do this because there's always a payoff somewhere of, like, soulless of, like, how do you even know where your soul was? I mean,
I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I was just trying to make a name for myself. And,
and
you know, and when you're in that environment, right? When I'm in prison and I've got the keys to the yard, which means I'm calling the shots on the yard, man, that fills that insecure void. that fills that
Well, you
void.
matter. You're making an impact.
Yes.
Because the worst thing is no attention, right? Negative attention is better than no attention.
I was needed.
And so you're
wanted.
making an impact. Yeah, maybe some people think it's a bad one, but at least you're doing things that remind you, I'm alive, I'm real. Look, I can make change.
Yes, that is exactly how it felt.
Makes
and
sense.
I felt important. However, how in the hell can I be important on a prison yard? And I was drinking my own Kool-Aid. So I didn't see it like that then. I was too emotionally immature to understand what I was doing. How can I be about something there? I'm in prison.
You're still in prison, yeah.
Just somebody share with me, please. What's lower than prison? Nothing. You can't get any worse than that. It's prison and death. That's it. That's the next step. There's no place I can go other than lower than prison. So I'm in there thinking I'm about something. Man, was I lying to myself?
Yeah.
So prison term after prison term after prison term after prison term, right? And I'm in there and I'm writing all the girls and they're writing me back and I'm calling and I'm lying to all of them and I'm playing that game, right? So I'm getting letters all the time and man, did I feel important?
That is just dopamine hits,
That's
right?
It. That's exactly what it was.
Like you said, the 6-year-old brain, the dopamine hits. Someone notices me.
At some point, we'll probably talk about EQ and the importance to that, right?
Yeah.
How important that is with our population.
Yep.
Because we can be 40 chronologically with the emotional base of a 13-year-old.
100%.
If that's the case, we're in trouble.
Yep.
Because you're not going to be able to live in light. You're not going to be able to live outside, right?
Yep.
With that, because you're going to make.
Well, and there's a lot of things that can impact that development, right? Trauma, obviously, like addiction, behaviors, drugs, all sorts of things. Yep.
Sure. So the arrests in many of those cases weren't pretty. What I mean by that is it's not like they came and they knocked on my door and go, "Hi, Dave, could you come outside, please?" and put me in handcuffs. I made things difficult oftentimes.
You have like a speed chase?
Oh, we're going to get there right now. So
I've been watching Fast and the Furious, so I get it. I get it.
It wasn't planned that day, right? It never is.
Right.
But I got out after my 10-year prison sentence. I'm out for 4 months, just a day or two before 4 months. I'm at a house in Huntington Beach. The girl's name is Tracy. It was kind of what I referred to as a safe house for me. I'd go over there all the time. We had we were doing our thing. Mm-hmm. And mom and dad traveled a lot. So she had a 2-story house in Huntington Beach that was basically hers. I'd go over there. She'd do my laundry. It was just a safe place to go. I would eat. We would do our thing. I could take a nap. We could, do whatever that looked like. And then I could, get on my phone.
I'm sorry. I'm still hooked on she would do my laundry. I'm like...
Because I was, I'm going from house to house to house, right? I'm out there just moving a lot of... So I'm a business...
I just know you now, so it's so funny.
I'm a businessman. Anyway.
Yes.
I'm there. I go upstairs. I got the bag open. I'm weighing stuff up. I'm on the phone, and I look outside, right? And out the window, and there's a helicopter hovering way the heck up there. Usually the helicopters in any neighborhood that you see flying around are just patrolling the city, right? The police helicopters. This thing was way the hell up there, and it was just hovering. It was just sitting there, and I thought, that's odd. An hour and a half goes by. I'm about ready. I'm done. I've made some phone calls. I'm getting ready to make some deliveries, and I look out that window. It's still there. And I thought, nah, not there for me. Pack my stuff up, walk out, say goodbye to Tracy, get my car, take off. Oh, it was there for me. Huntington Beach PD, Fountain Valley, Garden Grove, and parole were all in hot pursuit. She was the one that she must have gotten in trouble at some point, told on me, set the whole thing up. I know this to be true now, right? And I'm so grateful she did because it saved my life.
Yeah.
It literally, I didn't see it like that then, but she saved my life.
Yeah.
So I leave. I had told everybody I know, I'm never going back to prison. They're going to have to take me out because I'd done a 2-year term, a 5-year term, a 6-year term, and a 10-year term. I'm in California. I'm going to get the habitual criminal out. I already know what's going to happen. I'm going back to prison for 25 years or longer, right? And the thing is, when you have that kind of time in California, like my 10-year sentence, you go to a 4-yard. 4 yards lifers. So it's not Utah. I call this prisony land. This is California. There's 40 prisons. There's 2 in Utah. It's a completely different dynamic. Bloods, Crips, Sardanios, Norteños, white power skinheads. Gangs rule the yards, right? Violence rules the yards. I refer to as California prisons as high school with knives. That's how I see it because that's what we were doing.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So I knew when I went back to prison that I was going to spend the rest of my life there. So I took the police on a high-speed chase. I literally had wanton disregard for public safety. I am going through red lights. I am up on sidewalks. I am pushing cars at intersections out of the way. I'm just waiting for the cops to just come block me in, right? I keep getting away, but there's many cars behind me. And as I'm going down Atlanta, I'm going down Magnolia in Huntington Beach, getting close to Atlanta Boulevard. I'm going to make a left. I'm going to try to get to a bridge, and I'm going to try to throw everything out the window, down over the railing into the water. And then, if they get me, I have nothing on me, right? I'll get in trouble for the high-speed chase. They're going to have to go down there and find that and prove that's what I threw. That was my theory of defense. The helicopter had come down. It's shining its spotlight in the car. The cacophony of sound between the sirens, the commands to pull over, were deafening. Close your eyes and put yourself in that car at that time when the cops are chasing you. Each intersection you get to, there's cops at, right? The helicopter shining its spotlight. How the heck is this going to end? As I got to that intersection, there were 2 cop cars blocking that intersection. And they were blocking the intersection because they were blocking cross traffic to make sure I didn't kill anybody going through that intersection. Now they're getting ahead of me. And I have a decision to make. Do I go through that roadblock and displace those cop cars and use my car as a battering ram? Or do I stop and let them arrest me? And I opted for B. I opted to go through the roadblock.
I did what you said. I closed my eyes and I'm like, stop! Like all of a sudden I'm like, no, yeah. You stopped.
No, I didn't stop. I figure at this point, if I stop, right, I'm going to get in just as much trouble as if I don't.
Oh, so you did go through it.
I went through the roadblock. I displaced those cop cars, pushed them out of the way, used my car as battering ram. Julie, I wanted the cops to kill me. This is not an exaggeration.
No.
Human nature is funny. As I approach that,
well, what is there?
I want the cops to. I'm going to use my car as a battering ram. I hope that they shoot and kill me and take me out. And I've never wanted to die, Julie. I've never in my life wanted to die.
Well, and you didn't want to die. You didn't want to go to prison.
I no longer wanted to live. And that moment, right,
Yeah.
knowing I'm about to get arrested, I'm going to lose everything, all the money I've made, right, which was, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to go back to prison for God knows how long. So as I went through that intersection, I'm hunkering down in my car as I'm pushing those cop cars. I make the left-hand turn. Cop closest to me did the pit maneuver, the pursuit intervention technique, rammed my car, spun me out of control, and shoved me up on an embankment. The car is now undrivable. It was pretty much destroyed. At gunpoint, they pulled me out of that car and they beat the living shit out of me in handcuffs, and I had it coming. Some people say they shouldn't have done it because I was in handcuffs. If I was law enforcement, I'd have beat the crap out of me too. I risked everybody's life. Pedestrians, people in cars, the helicopter, the cops, I put everybody's life at risk. Now I'm up on this embankment in a parking lot at a strip mall right there at Atlanta and Magnolia. And the last thing I remember hearing before I passed out was, stop, we're going to kill him. There are people watching. They have to stop beating me. They can't do it anymore, right? There's people that are now looking at what's happening. So I wake up, I go to jail, go to court a couple times, and the initial deal was 29 years. So I'm 38. I'd spent the majority of my adult life going in and out of prison. 29 years. I'm doing the math. This is not going to end well. So I fought my case for a long time in the county jail, hoping to wear the courts down. I've been doing this for a long time, case after case after case. I know how to play the game.
Yeah.
And eventually some of the ancillary charges had fallen off, and it came down to 22. And Judge Pacheco was my judge. Richard Pacheco, he's now retired. He was my judge, and he made it very clear. Mr. Durocher, you're getting 22 years, whether you plead out, whether you go to trial. We're not offering you a plea deal. You're getting 22 years. So I'm like, okay, then I'll take it to trial. So I continue to go to court as and I'm firing public defenders. Firing the public defender, I'm articulating reasons why they're ineffective. Fire the next one. Trying to wear the courts down. And I'm trying to stay in the county jail so I can continue to get my visits from the girls because that's how insecure I was. I needed that. I'm playing the game. As the case continues to drag on and Judge Pacheco starts, I wouldn't say getting upset. He's doing his job. And he says, Durocher, we're setting it for prelim. You're going to trial. So at this point, I'm going, okay, this is probably not going to end well. And I decided to write a place called Delancey Street. Delancey Street was widely known in this country as the gold standard of therapeutic communities for many, many years. It started in 1971. It's the only place that a judge would send someone like me instead of prison. So I wrote them a letter. Delancey Street came to Orange County Jail and they interviewed me and they accepted me. 2 weeks later, underneath my cell door comes the letter, and I got this acceptance letter, and I was ecstatic. I felt like I hit the lottery. Holy cow, they accepted me. I go to court, present it to my public defender and judge, and he said, hell no. He didn't say hell. He just said, hell no.
And Delancey Street it's a rehabilitation.
It is.
For
Yes.
drug addicts?
For drug addicts and people with criminal lifestyles.
Got it.
It's 2 years long. That's long. When you juxtapose that against today's treatment facilities of 30, 60, 90 days, and we can get into that here shortly. But Delancey Street's a minimum of 2 years. I didn't even know you could stay longer. I just thought it was a 2-year program.
Yeah.
So I'm ecstatic. And the judge said no. He said, Mr. Durocher, you are not Delancey Street material. I will never send you to Delancey Street. Get out of my courtroom. Set a date for pretrial, and they're going to start choosing a jury. And you know what I mean? So I know I'm going to lose. I'm not going to win this case. They've got me.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm just playing the game.
Yeah.
So I decided to write that judge a letter. And everybody told me not to do it. You know what I mean? But I'm sitting in my cell going, what do I have to lose? I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. So I wrote him a letter.
And I doubt you have a lot to do sitting in that cell.
What am I going to do? You know, it's not like I was busy at night. Why wouldn't I do this?
I'd be so annoyed if you had if you misspelled words in that letter, with the time you have on your hands. I'd be like, really?
Right, exactly. But, I was the impeccably educated white boy,
Yes.
in jail, right? I would read a lot, but anyway, I wrote him a letter, right? So, or precociously educated white boy.
Right.
Anyway, so I write him a letter, 4 pages front and back, and I told him my life story from day one to the day I wrote that letter, in a condensed version.
Was it honest?
Of course
this
it was
letter
honest.
was honest?
No, I told him everything.
Okay.
And then I did something that everybody told me not to do again. I pled guilty to my charges. I said, Your Honor, you've got my story. Delancey Street interviewed me, and they think they can help me. Why don't you? And here's the deal. I'm guilty of everything. Sales, transportation, weapons, high-speed chase, everything. I'm pleading guilty right now on paper, and I am pleading with you. Please, let me go to Delancey Street. I said, Your Honor, what do you have to lose? You send me to Delancey Street, one of two things will happen. I'll get kicked out or I'll split, and you can lock me up for the rest of my life.
Because you've now pled guilty to all of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but that's not, pleading guilty on paper isn't going to be, I'm going to have to plead guilty in court.
Got it.
But what I was telling him was, I'm serious, and I'm telling you now I'm pleading guilty on paper, and I will do this in court. I'm begging you to let me go to Delancey Street. One of two things will happen. I'll get kicked out or I'll split. You can lock me up forever. Or the next time you see me, it's because I'm coming back to say thank you. About 6 weeks later, I went to court, and I didn't know what to expect. And court for me is a little bit different than it is here in Utah. Do you remember what a phone booth looks like? Mm-hmm. Imagine something half that size. I'm in this tiny little cage in ankle irons, waist irons, and handcuffs. And it's hard to get in the cage, right? And I get in that cage, and I'm sitting there and listen, that's where I needed to be. That's the animal I had become.
Yeah.
Being in that cage was humbling. You know what I mean? And some people go, oh my gosh, no, it's not abusive. When you do the things I was doing, and I didn't get into all the stuff I was doing on the street, all the violence and all the stuff I was doing, I needed to be in that cage at that time in my life. And they knew it. But Judge Pacheco said, Mr. Durocher, I received your letter. And against my better judgment, I'm going to give you the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm going to let you go to Delancey Street, but you're going to plead guilty to all of your charges in my courtroom today, and you're going to sign a deal for 22 years. I'm imposing the sentence. I will stay that sentence upon your completion of Delancey Street. But let me make something perfectly clear. If you leave or you split and you do not complete Delancey Street, you will get every day of that 22 years. Am I clear? I was blown away. I'm sitting in this cage thinking, holy cow, I'm getting out of jail. I'm getting out of jail. And the first thing I could think of is, what girl am I going to go see first?
Yeah.
I'm getting out of jail. So I signed the deal. I plead guilty. And the judge said, Mr. Durocher, I hope you do this. I don't have high hopes, but I hope you complete Delancey Street. Anyway, I leave. It takes the jail 36 hours to release me. This is not an exaggeration. I'm supposed to be released sometime that night or the next morning. They thought it was a mistake. They had to wait for the courts to reopen to make sure it wasn't. In the meantime, my parents knew I was going to court. I get back from court. I call them in Las Vegas. They leave Las Vegas, drive to Orange County to get me from jail to Delancey Street. So my parents are there waiting for me to get released. I get released, and there's a girl waiting for me outside the jail. I jump in her car. We drive across the street to the parking lot. We read Bible verses.
Clearly.
She drives me back. My girlfriend picks me up. I leave my parents there. I take off with Jennifer, and I'm gone for a few hours. And I get this feeling I'm going to use. I know I'm going to use. I called my mom and dad, and my mom answered that phone, and she was crying and screaming in a voice I've never heard before. And she was now, I've never heard my mom like this. She knew exactly what I was doing and exactly who I was with. She said, you have 15 minutes to get to your dad and I at this parking lot, or we are leaving and you are on your own. And I looked at Jennifer. I said, take me to my parents. She drove me to my parents. They were waiting at the hotel, the DoubleTree right there by the jail. Jump in their car, and they were not happy with me. They drove me to Los Angeles to Delancey Street. I sat on the bench, and I was really late. Delancey Street did not have to accept me, and they did. Now, Delancey Street is a 2-year-long residential life skills vocational training school, and it's 2 years. I stayed there for 8.5 years. Why would anybody in their right mind ever stay in a 2-year program for 8.5 years? Why do you think I stayed?
You were safe?
Because
From yourself?
Because I could. Just for the listeners, please. I stayed because I could. Because Delancey
Government
Street,
funded?
It's not government funded. That's why it works. You see, the government won't fund long-term programs because they work. And think about what I just said.
Wait. Yeah, slow that down for me. The government won't fund what?
Long-term programs because they work. Think about this for a second. For anybody listening, do your homework. Treatment facilities have a 3 to 5% success rate. 3 to 5. They're mostly government funded. Some of it's insurance. Some of it's self-pay mom and dad, rich mommy and daddy. The rest of it's Medicaid. The dosage effect. The longer you're in treatment, the better your odds of success. That's
Right.
a proven fact.
Yeah.
If that's a proven fact, why are most treatment facilities 30, 60, or 90 days? There's so much money in keeping us sick. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but treatment doesn't work most of the time. It's not long enough. If you were sick right now, Julie, and you had a bad infection, you had MRSA or you had ORSA, and I prescribed you Bactrim and Keflex, and you took it for 2 days, would you kill the infection? No.
I'm like, I don't know what any of those words
Yeah.
mean, but I think the answer is no.
No, you wouldn't, because it takes you've got the medications for 21 days. So then you lost your medication because you're a drug addict hopping from house to house, and then a couple weeks later you go back to the doctor, they re-prescribe them to you, you take them for a couple days. Pretty soon what happens? You become immune and resistant to the medication. We are creating a treatment-resistant population in this country with the 30, 60, 90-day model. We're creating it. We've done it. Academics have done it. The government's done it. We know it's not working, but we don't want to break the model. Delancey Street had the model broken since 1971. It turned out 25,000 graduates by the time I got there successfully back into the community. People like me that are difficult to deal with. Your long-term drug addict coupled with the criminal piece.
Yeah, this isn't their first time making a bad decision.
No,
if you're there.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And Delancey Street had 5 facilities in the country. And it's the only place, because the judge eventually let me go there, right, with that lengthy prison sentence over my head. Because Delancey Street was effective, right? He just wasn't going to let me go.
Is it still
It is
open?
still, yeah. It's just a fraction of what it once was. That's a whole nother conversation.
And I want to pause you real quick before we move to the Other Side Academy. For this podcast where we talk about being seen, what I love about your story and about your messaging and what you do at the Other Side Academy, which we'll talk about, is that it's a perspective of what it means to really see someone as human that I have not. I just think this is a perspective I don't understand as well because I don't work in this population.
Yeah.
I have friends and people close to me that have served time and things, but this is a different aspect of what does it really. People, I've had pushback before of people saying, because I talk so much to human compassion, of that you can be too compassionate with people, and in my mind, I think no, it's just that the compassion has become something else because compassion is not enablement. It's very different. And so I saw several points in your story of different people that saw you as a human, which actually doesn't mean seeing you necessarily in a positive light. Mm-hmm. Seeing you in your humanity of, okay, this is where this leads. This is the best opportunity I can give him to succeed, which even is going to hurt right now and he's going to be ticked about. But if I actually care about this person, this is the right choice to make. And it comes back to what I love so much about what you're saying and why I asked about that letter is you are a advocate of what the best thing for people to heal both their mental health and their resilience is to tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Yep.
talk to me just a little bit about the other side of sorry, I don't want to say a little bit, but in interest of time.
Yeah.
And then talk to me about telling the truth and why it's impactful.
Let me take 30 seconds to finish this piece.
Totally.
Delancey Street, I stayed 8.5 years. The reason why it worked for me is they told me the truth. The peers there, right? People I had known for a long time and hadn't seen for years, thought they were dead or in prison, were at Delancey Street already. I was blown away at how many people were like, Jeff, how long you been here? 4 years? What do you mean 4 years? It's a 2-year program. I didn't even understand what staying. He was a completely different person. Looked different, talked different, dressed different, talked to me different. I couldn't believe it. And Delancey Street broke me down. What I mean by that is they told me what a lying, cheating, thieving, manipulating, violent human being I had become and the impact that's had on my family and my friends and the community. And man, I took it to my pillow and I thought, holy cow, they're right. For the first time in my life, people with lived experience, that is so important. It wasn't a doctor or a therapist that slapped a degree on the wall and thought they understood me. That never worked for me. Treatment didn't work for me. The therapist didn't work for me. I needed people with lived experience that told me the truth, looked me in my eye and told me who I'd become, and also said, and we can show you how to get to a better place. That worked for me.
But I mean, truly what they're saying is, I see you.
Yes.
I know everything.
Yes.
Complete transparent. I know
Truly.
everything about you, and you can be helped.
Yes.
But let's be real clear
Yeah.
about exactly what you've done and who you've hurt.
Yeah.
And there is hope for you.
Yeah.
But we're not going to gloss over this. Like,
No.
you are allowed to feel this negative emotion.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way, right? To
Yeah.
get real with yourself, to actually make
Yeah.
lasting
And
change.
some people today, we live in this world right now where we're so afraid to tell people the truth. The narrative is, oh my gosh, you can't say that. You can't say that. That's shaming. Should I not have felt some shame for the way I lived? I had 3 kids by now, right? I had 3 boys I didn't raise. I was a sperm donor. Had kids, kicked them down the street for other people to raise. I had destroyed my family dynamic. I had cost the community millions of dollars in court fees and prison years and years and years in prison, millions of dollars. Shouldn't I feel some shame for the way I've lived? Shame was the catalyst for change for me. Not shame as in they get up in the morning and go, how can we shame him? I felt like I don't like the person I've become. I finally understand the person I've become because my peers are telling me who I've become. They're also saying we can help you get from point A to point B. But how can I change if I don't know what I need to change? Think about what I just said. How can I possibly become the 2.0 version if I can't address the 1.0 version? They told me the truth, and man, did it resonate, Julie. Man, did it resonate. They told me the truth, and they told me, you want to know why they told me the truth? Because they love me. They loved me enough to tell me the truth. It was incredible. I stayed in Delancey Street for 8.5 years. The last 5 years that I was there, Mimi Silbert, the president, it was fascinating. At the end of my 3 years, she came down and she looked at me. She goes, Dave, how much longer will you stay? I said, I don't know, Mimi. I just committed to another year. How much longer will you stay? Pretend like you're Mimi, right? I don't know, Mimi. I just committed to another year. How much longer will you stay, David? I don't know, Mimi. What are you asking me? She said, will you stay 5 more years? I had no idea why she was asking. And I closed my eyes and I thought about my life prior to Delancey Street, how great I felt at that time. The fact that she was asking me to stay. And I said, yeah, I'll stay. She goes, are you sure? I said, are you? 6 months later, she came back and asked me to run the LA facility. So now here's this guy who spent his life as a drug addict, going in and out of jail and prison his whole adult life, managing a multi-million-dollar organization with 250 souls living there that I'm responsible for. It was the most magnificent feeling in the world to be given that kind of responsibility and to be seen by Mimi Silbert, the president of Delancey Street, the way that she saw me. She saw things in me I didn't realize I had, the leadership capacity and the ability to get through to people like me. Anyway, with all that being said, I stayed. And for the next 5 years, I managed the LA facility. It was the most satisfying thing I'd ever done until I got the opportunity to come to Utah and start the Other Side Academy.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I did go back and see Judge Pacheco. For those who might wonder, I wonder if he ever saw the judge again.
What was that like, going back and seeing
3 years
Judge
later,
Pacheco?
I was able to reach out to Judge Pacheco, and he invited me to his chambers, and me and Alan, a friend of mine at Delancey Street, went, and we sat and we had lunch. And this is not an exaggeration. I cried more tears in chambers with Judge Pacheco than I had ever done prior to that. And so did he. And to say we became friends might be an overstatement, but I think we became pretty good associates at that time because I saw him many more times. And he said, Mr. Durocher, I am just so proud of you. I said, Judge Pacheco, I wouldn't be here today if not for you. If I'd have gotten busted in a different street, in a different city, by a different law enforcement, and ended up in a different court in front of a different judge, I wouldn't be here right now. I owe you my life. Thank you for letting me go to Delancey Street. I'll never forget it. Without him, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So he gave me the chance.
And he told you the truth.
He told me the truth.
And he gave you a chance.
So important. We're so afraid to tell people the truth. And we wonder why we can't solve societal ills. Because we don't want to tell people the truth. We're so damn afraid of hurting people's feelings. Well, damn it, I needed my feelings hurt. It wasn't intentional to hurt my feelings. It was telling me the truth that affected, let's go with this, it affected my feelings. Enough for me to be introspective and go, man, I don't want to be that person anymore. Help me change. Get me to a better place. Show me the way, you guys. Show me the way. And they did.
Thank you for sharing that perspective on telling the truth. And the Other Side Academy, I know you really tried to replicate what they do at Delancey Street. Do you, as we kind of close up here, do you feel like what you have learned, I've met your sweet wife, Mandy, do you feel like what you've learned about telling the truth in your recovery and in helping other people that have these same issues with these behaviors, do you feel like that's impacted the way your relationship is with Mandy, your wife?
Absolutely.
And I know you have gone and reconciled some with your children.
I have.
Which is unreal. Can you talk to me a little bit about understanding being seen as a human, how that obviously restored your mental health, your resilience, but then how that impacted your future relationships, which I know is the most important thing to you from the way you've spoken about it and as I've watched you interact with your wife.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. My kids, I have 3 boys. My oldest boy is Christopher. 4 years ago this October, I flew to Los Angeles and performed the ceremony to marry him to his wife. When he came to my wedding when I married my wife, he said, Dad, will you get your license and marry me to my fiance? And I did. And a couple of months ago, I flew I flew to Oregon, and I married my youngest boy, Ben, to his wife. They called me at like 9:30 at night, and Mandy and I were laying in bed just talking, and the phone rang, and we were on video, and Christina and Ben said, we have a question for you, Dave. And I go, what's up, Christina? And then Ben asked the question, my son. He says, will you come out to Oregon and perform the ceremony and marry me to Christina? And I said, you bet I will. So I married 2 of my sons, who I didn't raise. I wasn't their dad. I fathered them. I was not their dad. And this is important for people to understand. You cannot be a parent and a drug addict. You can't. You cannot be a parent and a drug addict. You are either a drug addict or you're a parent. You cannot be both. Today I'm a parent. You can't be a criminal and a drug addict and a parent. You can't, because if you're a criminal and you're a drug addict, what are you teaching your kids? And my middle boy, Ryan, he's at my Denver facility right now. He's been a student there for 3 years. He learned in my absence to be me. So we got him to TOSA in Denver, and he's been there for almost 3 years now, and he's just committed to a 4th year. So I have all 3 of my kids back in my life, but it took years for the relationship to come back together, but I couldn't force it. See, the problem what most people make is drug addicts will get clean and sober. Okay, I've been clean and sober for 2 weeks. Give my kids back. You've proven nothing yet. You've proven nothing yet. Getting clean and sober is easy, but have you gone through the whole person change process yet? Are you a different person? Are you a person of integrity? Are you worthy of being in your kids' lives? Are you going to bring them back into your life and then deal dope again or go rob the bank again or go do whatever you're going to do again? Are you going to put them in your car, in the car seat, while you're under the influence driving down the street? That's not what parents do. That's what drug addicts do. So in order to really to help people, you got to be able to tell them the truth about those things. I was told the truth about those things. I will never forget it. It saved my life.
Yeah. But the patience of other people to, at the very least with your boys to, I'm sure your relationship was not fantastic right away. Like I can't imagine it, and it shouldn't be. It doesn't it wouldn't make sense for it to be.
You want to hear something?
We'd probably worry about their own personal boundaries if it was with what they've seen.
When my oldest boy came to Delancey Street unexpected, I had been in Delancey Street about 5 years, and Lola came into my office. She says, Dave, your son's here. I said, what? She goes, there's someone out here, says he's your son, wants to talk to you. I says, well, Lola, I've got 3. She goes, well, he's got tattoos on his arm. Okay, I went out there, and there's my son. He's in his early 20s, late 20s at this time, right? and he took me into a room and he read me the riot act. I thought he was going to hit me. He called me so many names I can't repeat on this microphone. He said things to me that were true. 90% of what he said was true. 10% wasn't, but the 10% didn't matter because the 90% did. Some of the stuff he remembered or was told was not true, but the 90% was, and that's what I focused on. And I gave him a couple hours to tell me how he felt, and then he left. And it took years for us to continue to put that He needed to see that what I was doing was real, that I was a different person. And you want to know what he did during that couple hours? He told me the truth. I needed to hear it. He had a right to tell me exactly how he felt because I abandoned him.
And if you were ever to have any hope of any sort of relationship moving forward, you had to start from an honest place.
I couldn't even argue with him. I couldn't even argue the 10%.
But you could have, and I think, while this is a pretty high stakes story, with maybe not every listener is going to relate to what it's like to be in prison, or for all the things you did, we hope. I think we all can relate to when we're challenged with being told the truth when it hurts and we don't want to accept it. We actually, I think, do often focus on the 10%. I know I do in my own relationships where I'm like, oh, but you said this one thing wrong. So I'd like to focus on that so that I can avoid all of this. I'd like to focus on the one thing of, I didn't say it exactly that way. So I can focus on the bigger picture here of that I have hurt your feelings. I think that's such a common human behavior that we can all learn from, of when someone's hurting. No, we shouldn't on a daily be, by any means be accepting verbal abuse from our loved ones. We should be willing, I think, to be humble enough to say, you know what, maybe not everything about this is completely true, but I'm going to speak to what's true, and maybe we can even resolve that 10% later. But right now,
you nailed it.
Right now, the focus is you're in pain.
Yep.
I've made mistakes.
Yes.
Let's resolve that. Later on, we can talk about, hey, can we just be clear on here? But right now, my job is to hear you.
Julie, you're brilliant.
Thank you.
I was waiting for you to finish because you just said what I wanted to say. In the heat of the moment, I have no right to tell him not to tell me how he feels. I am not going to push back against the 10% in this conversation. I need to let him download everything he's been told and he learned at an early age when he saw me he needs to be able to do that. And if I'm any kind of a man, I'm going to let him. We can get back to that 10% later if this relationship
That's
continues.
not the priority right now.
No, but that's EQ. It's what I talk about, emotional maturity. You want to know where I learned that? Delancey Street. Not just in receiving feedback, but in giving feedback. Because the longer I was there, now I'm in leadership roles giving other people feedback like it was given to me. You learn how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. And in situations like ours, man, do we need a lot of feedback. Look what we've done with our lives. It's not like your average LDS person here who goes to church all the time, going to work, bought a home, raising a family, and the mistakes are much more minor, right? They're not as catastrophic mistakes as the ones I was making. That doesn't mean conversations aren't important and don't have significance and meaning, right? And need to be had. But you have to make you've got to make it safe for the conversation. And you have to be able to tell the truth. One of the reasons why we can't solve problems today is because we don't want to tell the truth. And people don't want to give feedback out of fear of receiving it. Well, then how the hell are we ever going to resolve issues?
Yeah.
And that is a huge narrative in this country. It's huge right now, today, of not saying stuff, sweeping stuff under the carpet. And what happens is when you sweep stuff under the carpet, you start to build injustices. You build injustices and you sweep it under the carpet, then you sweep it under the carpet, then you sweep it under the carpet. Then all these injustices you're building and that list in your back pocket, now you show up differently in any relationship, professionally or personally.
It just festers and festers and
then
festers.
You show up differently and you're a different person in that relationship, and you can't have a real, honest, loving, authentic relationship because you haven't spoken the truth.
Yeah.
It's killing people today.
So how is it that impacting your marriage?
So in my marriage, if I've done something or I've said something that upsets her, I allow her to tell me, and her the same. We don't even have to have that many crucial conversations because we don't live that lifestyle anymore. That doesn't mean things don't happen, right? It doesn't mean that I won't get under her skin or hers under mine, but we can sit down and go, Mandy, can I just share with you how I feel? Can I share with you something you said that hurt my feelings? And she'll allow me to, and I her. Julie, I've been with Mandy now for 8 years. I've been married for 5, this August 29th. We've had 6 difficult conversations. Never yelling, never screaming, no name calling, nothing like. We just don't do that. But we've had, I wouldn't even call them fights, difficult situations we've had to work through. But we work through them because we tell each other the truth.
I've spoken to a lot of women that have been in really difficult relationships, and men as well, but more women, probably just because women, maybe that's a place where we relate more, is just, both being women. How else do you say that? But something interesting of what I'm hearing you say is navigating relationships is, this all sounds maybe even easy to put into place, and sometimes it can be harder when you're not in a relationship where you're used to being able to do that and it being safe, or you're just not in the practice of telling the truth. My thought there is, though, that I'm sure can be a process to adopt, but eventually you should be able to see some change, some forward progression. I think often people are trying to make decisions about relationships, whether they're dating, married, maybe it's even with a sibling, based on, is this safe? Am I able to be the real me? Am I able to say what I feel? And it's okay for there to be a progress to get there. A lot of people aren't used to this kind of authentic, like, telling the truth all the time. That's going to feel really counterintuitive to how a lot of us were raised.
No, it's counterintuitive to comfort.
To comfort.
That's what it's counterintuitive.
That's a great way to say it. But hopefully that we should see progression of as we work on it together, that we're going to figure this out. And I don't think that means you're in an unhealthy relationship just because you're not used to it. But it's when you're working with someone that's not willing to tell the truth for long periods of time or make progress, that I think that's when you have to start looking at what kind of boundaries do I need to put in place in this relationship.
Here's the question we have to ask. What do you think's healthy or the most unhealthy? Being in a relationship where you don't have crucial conversations and you build resentments and you keep adding stuff up that you're not talking about. You have all these things that are unresolved, or resolving them. What relationship do you think is going to be healthier?
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. 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 You're imploding inside.
And we have all these reasons of why we've been told not to talk about it.
You can't even be in the same room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's a skill. Practice having them. Practice taking feedback.
And practice safety in them.
Be humble enough to listen to the impact you might be having on other people. Humility is much more difficult for men than it is for women, because we're full of false pride, especially a guy like me living the life that I did, because I think this or doing the things I did in prison make me a man. I was a coward. I was a little boy in prison. Anybody who's willing to fight and hurt people, that's cowardice. That's not how you resolve issues.
And disregard their children.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I chose that over everything else. And just because I'm willing to fight, go into a cell, or be on the front lines, or hurt somebody with an object, that doesn't make me a man. That makes me a boy.
Yeah.
That's what boys do. Men don't do that.
Yeah.
Unless their lives are in jeopardy.
And now the cool thing is you can take that because of what you've been through. You are now doing something with it, because people are going to listen to you in that situation differently than they'd ever listen to me.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what I'm talking about. I've never been there. I don't know.
Right.
And so I can relate to suffering. I can relate to doing dumb things out of pride. I can relate to these things. But to have someone level with them that has done the kind of things they've done, that sees them really clearly, starkly as they are, call it out and say, and you can change too.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. And I know that's what you do at the Other Side Academy.
Can I share just a little bit about the Other Side Academy?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll finish up.
So the Other Side Academy is a 30-month long. Delancey Street was 2 years long minimum stay, but you could stay longer. The Other Side Academy, or TOSA, is 30 months long residential. Life skills, a vocational training school. The beauty of the model is you can stay as long as you need to. Why can you stay as long as you need to? Because we don't take any money from the government. City, county, state, federal government, rich mommy and daddy, Medicaid, nothing. So people go, well, then how do you do it? We generate the revenue ourselves through our social enterprises or our businesses. Then the drug addict / criminal, or both, can stay as long as they need to. The beauty of the model is you can stay as long as you need to. The government has nothing to do with the model. Julie, our 10-year anniversary is coming up in October. People from around the country and around the world are going to come to our anniversary, right? You're welcome to come as well. It is going to be a celebration unlike anything you've ever seen. But we've been open for 10 years. I have 180 ex-felons and ex-drug addicts living under the same roof right now in downtown Salt Lake City. Everybody that comes to us is on AP&P, adult parole and probation. We have never given a dirty drug test to adult parole and probation. There's never been an act of violence nor a threat of violence. The culture is so strong, you can't tear it. It's such a thick culture of accountability. There's no drugs. I was up at the Capitol a few months ago and I ruffled some feathers and I told everybody, all the legislators and senators, I tell you what, you guys, you send your people down to my facility, test my staff and test my students. Everybody's going to come back negative. Go to every other treatment facility and test everybody. Half of them are going to be positive. You want to know why? They're ran by you. They're ran by government funding where there's no accountability and you wonder why we're failing. At the Other Side Academy, you can stay as long as you need to. We have businesses, the Other Side Movers, the Other Side Thrift Boutique, the Other Side Builders, the Other Side Storage. I'm just starting another business called the Other Side Catering. We're starting the Tiny Home Village on the west side for our chronically homeless brothers and sisters who have severe mental health issues, right, and require medications because we don't take that population at the Academy. So we're doing phenomenal work. No drugs there, no sex there, no violence there. It's not government ran. That's why it works. And people sometimes go, what are you That's why it works. It is ran exclusively by the people that are there, by all of us. My staff, I have 26 staff members at the Other Side Academy in Salt Lake City. If you work there, you live there. If you're at a treatment facility, what times do therapists punch in? 9. What times do therapists punch out? 5. Then they leave the students or the clients with somebody with 90 days of sobriety. How do you think that's going to turn out?
Yeah.
At the Other Side Academy, I live on property. Julie, I'm the executive director and the co-founder. I live on property. I live in the same building my graduates live in or some students live in. All of my staff were there 24/7.
And everybody on your staff has served time, correct?
Everybody on my staff has lived experience. Mm-hmm. All of them have been to jail.
Yeah.
Some of them have been to prison.
Yeah.
All of them have lived a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's why we're effective.
Yeah.
Because the problem is, here's what's happening today. We're sending tons of people to the universities, the U, BYU, and they're getting degrees in social work. If you think, could you imagine let's just say, Julie, you're my therapist 21 years ago.
I'm not cut out.
I'm in prison. You're a therapist. No lived experience. The first time you've seen me, 27 years of hardcore drug addiction, right? Your job's to figure out what's wrong with me.
My white girl, I got this.
Right. And your job's to figure out what's wrong with me based on the lies I'm going to tell you. And in 30 days, you and I are going to be sleeping together. Because I've done that with my therapist before. Because they go to school, they get a degree, they have no lived experience,
terrifying.
And I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah, master manipulator.
Yes,
yeah.
But also, if I'm lying, anybody who's been to therapy has lied to their therapist. And what I mean by that is they've either left things out that they didn't want to tell, that's lying by omission, or bold-faced lies.
Yep.
Now, in the prison setting, if I'm going to a therapist in the prison setting, right, and I want a time cut, I know exactly what to tell the therapist. Exactly. And they have to diagnose me at the end of that hour based on the lies I'm telling them, and they will. The model's broken. At the Other Side Academy, there are no one-on-one therapist sessions. The peers are the best therapists in the world. They see that stuff coming a mile away. Why do you think Delancey Street works so well?
Yeah.
But it pushes back against the conventional model.
Right.
It pushes back against this model. But why is our success rate through the roof?
Yeah.
Because we've broke the model. We're doing something that works.
Yeah.
And it's not an exaggeration to say the whole world is coming. I just had someone here from Idaho for 5 days of immersion training. I've got people from all over the country that come. Yesterday, I was with a whole
Good.
group from Las Vegas,
Good.
studying the village and studying the academy.
Good.
They're paying attention. They're going, this is working. We've broke the model. We're helping people turn their lives around and become the best version of themselves.
By seeing them where they're at.
Isn't
Exactly.
it incredible?
It's incredible and telling the truth.
That's it. And I was just going to say, you want to know why? And you said it. Because we tell people the truth. Now, we don't get up in the morning and go, okay, let's go get Julie. Let's truth her into shame. Let's truth her into making her cry.
But when Julie blames other people for her own behavior,
Yes.
I'm assuming you tell her the truth.
And yesterday I had a situation where I had a woman that's been there for 4 months and a guy that's been there for 2 years. He was also the crew boss. They've been eyeing each other and googly eyes and googly eyes and googly. She finally sat down and cleaned everything up and wrote 6 pages of cleanup. I had to get him home from work and bring him in, sit him down, and he goes, yep, I've been doing that. And then we told them how dangerous it is. If you guys keep doing that, you sneak off to a mop closet for 30 seconds of pleasure. You've got time over your head. So does she. You guys split together. You walk down the street. You have 30 seconds of sex behind the dumpster. And you're both going back to prison. And the difference between us and every other place is we're going to tell you the truth about the ramifications of what you're doing right now. Yeah. And then they got their consequences, and they're both still there. And they're going to do their consequences and fix it. Now the whole house knows, and we can keep an eye on them. That's how it works and why it works so well.
Yeah.
We love you enough to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And then I'd tell them both. I'd say, Jesse, when you were on the street, how many partners have you been with? Oh, I couldn't count them. How many are you? So all those relationships have ended? Because you were in them. Because you're doing exactly that here. I said, today you're in a program. You don't have two nickels to rub together, a pot to piss in, or a window to throw it out of.
You have no money, business in being in a relationship.
Yeah, thank you. You have no business being in a relationship. And what's the one thing you have to offer? What's the one thing?
Telling the truth.
Sex.
Yeah.
How's that work for you? So what they're doing is, it's just that primal, I want to get laid, right?
But it's a dopamine hit.
That's an 8th grade thing. It's an 8th grade thing.
It's not what men do.
You guys are adults.
Yep.
You have nothing to offer each other. You don't even know what a healthy relationship looks like because you've never had one with self. And they were crying. And they're doing their consequences, and they're going to fix it. We love them enough to tell them the truth.
Oh, so powerful.
Chasing
Thank you.
the feel-good is what they were doing. And I have news for everybody. When you become good, you will stop chasing the feel-good. And that feel-good is a million different things. But when you really become good at your core, and you make other people come first, and you love other people, and you're of service, and all you want to do is influence and impact for good, that feeling is so powerful that you stop chasing the feel-goods.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective today on how to see people.
You're welcome, Julie.
And the things we can fix and change in our relationships.
Yep.
You're cool.
So are you.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this conversation on the ICU podcast today. We do have a women's group starting that we will be creating a community for women. If you are looking for more connection in your life, everything we're going to do is rooted in human connection, and we would love to have you. There is a sign-up wait list on ICUliving.com. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time on ICU.